Hi, everyone. I'm De'Ara, the host of the All Kinds of Minds podcast. I represent Social Cipher, an edtech company that makes social and emotional learning games for neurodivergent students. The All Kinds of Minds podcast is all about sharing tips, strategies, insights, and more to support the professionals who support neurodivergent youth. Today, our guest is Amy Husk-Reed. She's an education specialist with the Virginia Department of Education's Training and Technical Assistance Center at Old Dominion University. She also has experience as a special education teacher, program developer, and mentor. Today, we're going to be talking about practical ways educators can set up their classrooms to be an inclusive and supportive environment for neurodivergent students. Thank you so much for being here, Amy.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So, before we get into the topic, can you just share more about what you do as an education specialist and how it connects to the neurodivergent community?
Absolutely. So, I've always been a special education teacher in some capacity. It's where my heart is, it's always going to be there. I'm sure you know, because I believe you used to teach in the classroom as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Once an educator, always an educator. So, early in my career, it was actually my neurodivergent students who inspired me unknowingly to pursue a master's degree with a focus in autism. And they really taught me a lot in how I approach education today, which in its own way guided me to my current role as an education specialist, where I really feel like I get the best of all the things I love. I still get to work directly with students sometimes, like maybe I'm demonstrating for a teacher how to do an activity or an approach. But then I also have the opportunity to support special education teachers and paraprofessionals more directly. Like I love coaching and empowering others. So how that might look in my current role is maybe they need some help co-planning, or they're looking for shoulder to shoulder coaching support, or it could be like a larger scale training. And then some teachers, they're just looking to be connected with resources or some research, for instance. But I really love how I don't I only I not only get to continue to learn as I have the time, right, and I'm supported in continuing to research myself, but learning for other learning from other educators in the field. I really enjoy every conversation because I think there's always something you can get from that. Um, and it's always a chance to strengthen our collective support for our neurodivergent students.
I love that. That's such valuable work because I'm sure you know there's a huge special education teacher shortage
Oh,
throughout the country that I feel like has been there forever. Like the shortage is just not getting better. But it's so
mhm.
important to support the teachers who are there and even teachers who don't teach special education. Like when I was a general education teacher, I taught a lot of students who had IEPs, and there wasn't, a special education teacher in there with me, but I didn't receive the same kind of training that they received. And so I was just, kind of winging it or looking up stuff for myself. So you're doing really important work, which
Yeah.
you already know that.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, and to that point, this is something I'm hoping to get into more as years continue. But myself and my colleagues, some of us have come together to support an undergraduate special education class. So that's kind of a new responsibility within my work. To your point of, everyone should have some support and understanding going into the field of special education. So that's what we're trying to accomplish with this undergraduate special education course, because it's not just for special education teachers, general education. There's some peer professionals in there as well. I think
That's awesome.
that would help a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of times paraprofessionals work super closely with the students. So, but they're often overlooked, when it comes to some of the training and stuff. So I love that. So one of the most stressful times of the year is pre-planning when you're trying to, get the classroom set up and your roster might keep changing and oh, school starts tomorrow and you just added 3 students. All of that kind of stuff. But it's super important to, design a classroom that is inclusive, that students feel comfortable in. So, What what would you say are three things that teachers should keep in mind to ensure that they are creating an inclusive classroom environment?
Well, there's certainly a lot of ideas out there, but to narrow it down to three, I would respond to that question with three questions. So, when you go into your space, I would encourage you to ask yourself, is the space safe? Is the space clear? And can my students see themselves in here? And now that I say that, I did not intend for that to rhyme, but maybe that'll help for us to remember that later on. But those are the three questions I would ask when you go into your space for the first time, or maybe you're returning after a summer and maybe you want to resituate some different things. So, to expand a little bit on that, when I say safety, I'm really thinking maybe twofold. So, first, of course, we have safety as far as physical safety. Can you go around your room and you're not bumping into things? Is it accessible? I think too about those areas where maybe we're trying to define a space with a carpet, for instance. If you have students that are utilizing different mobility devices, let's make sure they can get into that space as well. So, what that might mean is taping around the carpet edges, or if the carpet isn't really serving any purpose other than defining the space, could you define it a different way with your furniture arrangement? Or could we put maybe painter's tape on the ground instead to define whatever space it is you're looking for? And then safety too, in that if you have those taller bookshelves that you're thinking of different ways to arrange it to create particular spaces, let's make sure those shelves are anchored if they're taller than our students. So, of course, those physical safety things keep that front and center. But then I also think about mental and emotional safety. So, an example with that are break spaces or a calm down space. Do I know when I walk into this space if I'm needing a moment to recenter, help get back to baseline? Do I know where I can go within that room that it's going to be safe and I can help process through whatever I'm going through? So
Yeah.
that's what I think about with the safety, but then space clarity. There's so many different ways you can set up your room. It's going to be dependent, of course, on how much space you actually have. I don't know about you, but I've had full classrooms, which is awesome, like this big open space that I got
Hmm.
the chance to define different areas. And then I've also been in a closet. So I don't know about you, what kind of space you are used to, but it's going to vary, right?
Yeah, definitely. I had both. I had a computer lab that was huge, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had the smallest room in the school that used to be the resource room.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Hopefully you got a window at least. That's the most crushing if you don't have a window.
It was one of those like windows that's like that big all the way at the top that nobody can actually look
Oh
out
gosh.
of. Yeah.
Well, given that everyone's actual space allotment's going to be different, we can at least try our best to create clarity within that space. So if someone new walks into my room, is it really clear to them where I'm going to have my group instruction versus maybe a calming area versus maybe some independent work options? But I also mean clarity in terms of visual clutter. So I've been guilty of this, but when you walk into, say, Target and there's that $1, $5 aisle,
Hmm.
yeah, have you been sucked into that aisle?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, me as well. I'm pretty sure it was designed with teachers in mind because there's all sorts of fun things in there, motivational posters and banners. And my challenge, my encouragement to you is before you put up any of the wall decor and such, ask yourself, is it relevant? Is it helpful? Because especially for our autistic students who process visuals in more intense or detailed ways, it can be too much clutter, can really be distracting and sometimes distressing. So we want our visuals and all that decorations, whatever it might be, to support learning, not compete with it. And two things can be true. Something can be cute and it can also be purposeful. It's just a matter of us as educators filtering through that, not getting always sucked into the $1, $5 aisle. But, as we learn, as we know more, we grow more. And so I've come to learn, and now there's studies out there as well showing that students with really strong processing visual skills, they're going to pay more attention to what's happening behind you if there's a lot going on. And it's going to be a really big challenge for them to focus on you and that instruction. So let's make it more inclusive, more accessible by just minimizing what's going on in the background, all those visuals. And really, the visual that I really want to see in every classroom are those visual schedules. They need to be accessible, predictable. It really helps to create a culture of safety and clarity. And it's not just for special education classrooms. Like, I should walk into any classroom and know what students are working on, what's going on next, like what's the plan. It just really helps to create a sense of security and clarity. And certainly you'll have students who maybe need some individualized schedules, but we're for sure at least starting with that overarching classroom schedule.
I really love all those points. I never thought about clarity. Like even when I would decorate my class, I'm not a decorator,
Yeah.
so I'm sure students were very much so not overstimulated in my class with my very few posters. But I think that's such good advice, especially for new teachers who might feel that pressure to put up a ton of posters and, just
Yeah.
all the things because they want their classroom to look amazing, and it does, but it might actually be working against the students, which you wouldn't think. So that brings me to my next question, though, because for a special education classroom, it makes sense, to reduce like the stimulating decorations and things like that.
Mhm.
But when you're in a general education classroom where you have students who, need all of those different posters and things, but then you also have students who are easily overstimulated, how can um, general education teachers or just teachers who work with um, both students with IEPs and students without them, how can they kind of balance that when they're setting up their classroom?
Sure. So you're talking about like anchor charts that are up on the wall.
What do you mean?
Like sometimes to hone in on a concept or key things to remember, a teacher might make an anchor chart on one of those big wall sticky notes. And
Mm-hmm.
for that, I would say if it's going with your instruction, then when you're asking your questions of is it relevant, is it helpful, yes and yes. I see those as those are fine if they're supporting instruction. But
Mm-hmm.
to your point of, okay, where's the balance? Maybe an example for that is thinking about when we hang up a bunch of student work, for instance. Um, could that work go out in the hallway? Or, even better idea, could we just publish that student work in a different way? So, for instance, let's say your space is limited and you're trying to balance the what you were saying of students who maybe like seeing the work on the wall, students where it's too much. Just an idea, grab a just a regular office 3-ring binder, and let's say it's a bunch of student writing pieces that you're trying to showcase. Take that binder, put everyone's writing piece in a clear colored, the little office protector sheets, put the topic of whatever your writing prompt was, and voila, your school, your class has now published a book together that can be in your classroom library. And the neat thing about that is not only is it exciting when our students then go to pick that out of the classroom library and look at their own work, but perhaps it will inspire some conversations with their peers of like, hey, what did you write? Or tell me more about you, what you wrote. And it's going to be something that's accessible for all our students because whether you have students that are at the scribbler stage all the way through the conventional writing stage, they all can partake in that writing activity. And because you've given that binder a clear title, a clear topic, we've now attached meaning to everyone's writing as a starting point for conversation and getting to know one each other a little bit better. And it's really neat to have like a class collective book like that. So
Yeah.
that's just one idea if you're wanting to get things off the wall.
That's an awesome idea. Like I never thought about that. Like, I think the default is always just put the work on the wall. And that also takes less work, putting it into that
Mhm.
binder, and less resources, because a lot of times once you put the student work on the wall, you have to put it on construction paper, and then you need, whatever you're going to use to stick it up and all that kind of
Yes.
stuff. And now you need a border, and you need to cut out letters to put up there. And
Hmm.
so that's like a really efficient and effective way to display that student work. I love that idea. So I'm kind of going along that same topic of like how that is actually like saving money and saving
Hmm.
resources. Budget issues are a thing. They've always been a thing, but now more than ever, schools are, struggling to cut back, getting budget cuts and things like that.
Yes.
So, what advice would you have for, or what ideas do you have for educators who don't have a large budget?
Well, thinking about that, the classroom library, I'll start there because that can sometimes be a really expensive place in your classroom. And we do want to give our students access to lots of different texts. So those classroom libraries are really important, not only for the access, but it can foster a lot of identity. It can help support including like diverse characters, cultures, abilities, experiences, etc. So we want some really full, meaningful libraries. But what do we do if we don't have funding to go get a bunch of different books? I would say first idea, connect with those in your school district, find the retiring teachers. That's where I got most of my classroom books, from retiring teachers or teachers who are switching positions who don't want all their previous classroom stories. Facebook, they have the buy nothing groups. A lot of times people are getting rid of different books. So of course, you just got to preview them because sometimes I'm like, no, don't want that in my library. And that's fine. Your local library, I've seen with mine at least, they'll do giveaways. And then check
Hmm.
your area for different programs. I know in ours, we have the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, where you can register your students and then they receive free books. And then online, one of my favorite free sources for books. It's called Monarch Reader. It was formerly Tar Heel Reader, but there's a lot of great text in Monarch Reader, and you can build your own, which is really nice. And then thinking too of our libraries, they can be more than just picture books or chapter books because there's all sorts of text types in the world. So why not go to our local visitor center and grab some magazines or maps, or your restaurants, grab some of those menus. And you might be thinking, okay, I how is a student looking at a map supporting their reading skill development, for example? And with that, I would say, well, if I have a student who's a really resistant reader, it's been really challenging for them, and so they're not even interested in reading, if I can get that draw towards the classroom library and they're starting to show interest in maps, that leads me to then build upon that interest. And maybe I'm going to create a decodable text about maps that we're going to read during our lesson. Or maybe I'm going to come up with some letter sound activities that have a treasure map theme. So I think of those text types too. It doesn't just have to be the chapter book, the picture book, it can be other things that can help spark some interest and the ultimate joy of reading, right? We're trying to get reading for meaning and have some joy in there.
Okay, I really like that idea. I definitely would not have thought to get menus and
Yeah, think
and
of
maps,
those
and I bet kids
things.
probably get excited too, seeing like menus from their favorite restaurants and stuff. Like, kids get so
Exactly.
excited about things from their out of school life coming into their school life. So, yeah.
Yeah, spark some excitement. And then if you do have a little bit of budget and you're trying to curate some identities, like some books that support different identities, because you're asking, okay, can my students see themselves in this library? I'll share with you the link. It's from the Iris Center. They've curated a whole list of inclusive books that portray different characters with different disabilities and interests. And so that might be a nice resource if you do get a little bit of funding to purchase some books.
Okay. Any ideas outside of the classroom library? Like you mentioned, calm down corners and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. The calming space can also be a very expensive of a classroom. They're important to have, but I know sometimes the maybe the equipment or the pieces we want within there can start racking up the dollars. So, my first recommendation is connecting with others in your school district because you're going to know your students and what they need. And sometimes, if we can't purchase this thing and we're not sure how to make it, there might be a workaround. So, an example of that, I really needed some like cushioned mats in my calming area, and I didn't have the funding for, the getting new. So what I did is I just reached out to the gym teachers in my school district and asked them if I could just have a couple of those gym mats, and most all of them have a few to spare, right? What's one or two less? And then I just had to take the time to like really clean it because, they're gym mats. Who knows what's been going on there? But I got those for free and then clean them up. They worked great for having some like cushion in a calming area. And then I also recommend reaching out to your occupational therapist because if a student has a particular need, they're going to know some different routes you can take to obtain maybe a particular item. And then if you're lucky enough to have an AT specialist in your school district, they might have some really great DIY ideas for creating your own things. One of the coolest things an AT specialist I used to work with created for me, those bubble machines, those like they're about as tall as maybe like a second grade student. They're pretty tall bubble machines with a base. Have you
Oh
seen
wow, I
those?
haven't. My son would love that.
Yeah. Well, if you go to buy them, they range from $300 to $1,000.
That's why I haven't
Uh,
seen it.
yeah, exactly. But she made one. She used plywood and some clear tubing and created one.
Wow.
So, of course, you're going to definitely want to work with a specialist on that in just thinking of the safety, right? You got water and electrical,
Hmm.
but that was no cost to me. And it sounded like, for the most part, all the materials she already had. And it was such an amazing feature in our calming area because those bubble machines, you have the visual, you have the sound, there's like a little vibration with it. So all the students really benefited in some way and no cost for me whatsoever.
That just made me think about something
Mhm.
because in the district that I taught in, the high schools have like career tech courses and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's throughout the country. And so like there was welding, carpentry, all those kinds of things. And I bet like doing a partnership with those teachers could help a lot too. Like
Absolutely.
we also had an electrical and energy systems one. And so that sounds like a cool project where the students could create, these different things that other teachers might need for their classrooms. And that way it's, helping those high school students by doing projects that have real world applications, but then it's also helping the teachers who need those resources. So that's a really cool
Yes.
idea that, I didn't think about because I don't know if most districts have that position you were talking about where they
Not
can
all
do
of
that.
them. No.
Yeah. But
But
I feel like a lot of them have students who are interested in fields where they would be creating things like that. So
I think
that
that's
could be
a
cool.
fantastic idea. Anytime you can pair up with the high school or the community college, there's can be some really great activities that can come from that. I know, the smart board or the smart table was the big thing one year,
Hmm.
and we did a partnership activity. I was at the elementary level and I partnered with the high school and gave some, without names or any privileged information, but just some skills that students were working on and some interests. And the high school students in their tech class combined the interests with the skills we're working on and created applications like game apps
Wow.
for the students. Like, how cool is that? And that cost me
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. So it's really about thinking outside the box.
You got it.
And
Yep.
then with TikTok and Pinterest, like it's a lot easier now than it was back before I was teaching, I'm sure. So, yeah. So, what are some ways that administrators can support teachers in doing all these things?
Well, let's see. So, first, if they're listening to this and maybe I would say first, okay, I think about, we mentioned a couple barriers where it comes to purchasing items. So if there is a budget for something, talking to your special education teachers of things they might need, because there might be some additional equipment, additional pieces that they truly do need. It's not just because it's extra fun to have a bubble machine in your calm down area. There are things that you do need. But thinking of beginning year especially, include your special education teachers on those classroom supply lists. Like, we need tissues too. So thinking about, okay, maybe they didn't get a class list. We're going into August now, so I already see those in the stores, right, for second grade, first grade, etc. But how could you maybe within your school community share some of those things, especially if you do have a self-contained classroom? How are they getting things like tissues, markers, etc.? And then, if your school is fortunate enough to have any upgrades in terms of furniture, for example, include your special education teachers, include your occupational therapists in those discussions, because they're going to have some ideas for alternative seating, for example. And then I'd say the third thing, if you have a teacher starting mid year and didn't get this beginning of the year, set up your classroom time, work with them to figure out how are you going to give them that time so they're not just starting day one walking into the classroom for the first time, and it's going to be really hard for them and for the students. So it's a lose lose. So how is your onboarding going to look even when student, or excuse me, even when teachers are starting after the first day of school? What that most likely is going to mean is that teacher is going to need to stay after school, or if they can start on a Monday, coming into over the weekend to get organized and set up. And I know, right, paying for that extra time probably isn't going to happen. But what's another great thing instead of money? The gift of time. So, could you work with your teacher knowing that they started in October and they came in all weekend long to set up the classroom? Maybe the next teacher workday, is it possible that they could work from home or leave halfway through? Like, is there something there that we can help support, because their onboarding process is going to look a little different? So acknowledging that they didn't get that beginning of the year time to get organized. I know it's a crazy concept, right, to maybe like work from home or try some of these different ideas, but it's possible. Like, I think it should be possible at least to work through and get some of that time back in some way.
That's such a great idea because when I was teaching, my principal gave us, she called it flex time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we had to stay after school for things or advise certain clubs after school and things like that, we would get flex time for that amount of time. And then we could use that on those teacher work days. Like if we wanted to leave early or come in late or if we had a doctor's appointment, we were able to use that time instead of using our like vacation days, which we only
Nice.
got 3 a year,
Right.
instead of using vacation days or sick
Mm-hmm.
leave for those things. And so that was so useful to me when I became pregnant. All of my appointments, I had flex time to use for, and so I still had all of my other time saved up for when I was out for maternity leave. So yeah,
That's
that's a great
wonderful.
idea, and it really means a lot to the educators because it shows that you respect their time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we don't have a lot of it.
Yeah.
And we're talking about creating inclusive and supportive environments for our students. That creates an inclusive, supportive environment for the whole workplace. It goes a long
Yes.
way.
And that is so necessary and sometimes forgotten. So, we talked about like the physical environment,
Mhm.
but when it comes to like the emotional environment, creating a sense of belonging is super important. So, what are some activity ideas that can help educators foster that sense of belonging?
Great question. I have a lot of ideas, but I'll just give a few for now. Um, I love that question because I know too we've talked about before about we're not just building community the first day or the first week of school. It's something that's going to be ongoing, and it really matters. So for those listening, take time to ask yourself, like, when was the last time you felt like you truly belonged? And think about those different elements that helped you feel belonging and who helped you feel that way, perhaps. And then connect that to your classroom. Because I know we all know we have research out there. We know that belonging improves well being, engagement, academic success, and it's going to reduce a lot of those behavioral incidents. So we want those things for our school, right? But it has to be real. And as this is especially important when I think about our neurodiverse students, because I question, if you feel like you must mask all day long, or you feel like you got to fit into a mold all day long just to get through the day, do you truly feel like you belong in that space? And I can't answer that for others, but I know for me, thinking of my K through 12 years as a student, I learned best in classrooms where I felt really valued. And that's going to be too where I made the strongest friendships. And then the rooms where I didn't feel connected at all, I couldn't wait to get out of those classes. So, some really simple, concrete things we can do from the get go and then all year long. I think about first impressions and daily greetings. So, I always had a greeting choice board right outside my room. What that looked like, if you think of a four square grid, each grid had a different option for how the student could have a little voice and choice on how they wanted to be greeted. And I always kept one to that was very low key, didn't involve like physical contact, like a fist bump, but maybe it's just a wave, something simple. But I put those in a clear office page protector sheet taped out to the wall. So that way I could change out the choice boards throughout the year. I have seasonal ones. If students were really excited about a certain movie that just came out, I maybe made a thematic one. I remember one year, A Big Hero 6 was all the rage. Have you seen that movie?
You said Hero 6?
Big Hero 6. It's an
Mm-mm.
animated. Okay, well, I highly recommend it um, because my students were so excited about it. I watched it, and in that movie, one of the main character robot, he learns how to give a fist bump, and it's really funny because he gives a fist bump, and then as he pulls his hand away, he goes ba la 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 la. And this was just the hilarity, like so hilarious for my students for the longest time. So I had a robot themed greeting choice board. And of course, the Big Hero 6 fist bump was an option. Whatever's on there, right? It's going to be different across the ages. Having that set routine of greeting before you come in the room has a lot of benefits. One is you're building that routine and some emotional connection. When you're greeting your students at the door, it really communicates like, hey, I'm really excited to see you. I'm glad you're here. And it allowed me too to do like a quick emotional check in because even in that 15-second greeting, I could tell if maybe a student was having an off day. So that gave me a chance to check in with the student one on one, see what's going on, and if there was something we can maybe get ahead of. So that's like a really simple one. You can do that all year long. And another one that I love, thinking about fostering identity, I'll give you this resource to link wherever. But we have this great center. It's the I'm Determined Center within Virginia. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. There's a lot of great resources on there. But the one that I want to highlight is this one pager. that all students can do, where it talks about identifying your strengths, your preference, your interests, your needs. And if writing is a barrier, they also have an online format so you can use pictures or type whatever's most accessible. But with this one pager, not only are students starting to identify more about themselves, but then they can start to work on advocating for their needs, especially when you're at middle and high school and you're maybe working with a bunch of different teachers. That's a lot of different people who you're going to need to share in some way what you need to be successful. And having this grounding one pager can help everyone better understand the different students that they have in their classroom. And it's something everyone can do. And for students who do have regular IEP meetings, how cool would it be for them to bring something like this one pager to their own meeting to start explaining and advocating for themselves more, and expressing what they need to be successful?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, definitely share that resource so I can add the link in the description. You've given a lot of good resources
I
during this
love sharing
conversation.
resources
Yeah.
and thinking of new ideas and brainstorming. It's for me, it's like, give me an objective, give me an interest, and I'm going to try to think of different ways we can connect the two in whatever format.
Yeah. You have a lot of great ideas and it's like they're coming off the top of your head, which is perfect for a teacher. How long were you in the classroom?
So let's see, I was in elementary level for 8 years, and then I was in like a K through 12 learning center for a couple years, and I've been out in Virginia for, gosh, two years, 3 years now. Yeah, two
Okay.
years. Yeah, it's gone fast, but I love the work. And even you inviting me on the podcast just reminds me of I'm always learning, and it's good to try new things because I know with podcasts, right, we're trying to have more of a conversation, whereas I'm used to providing professional development where you have a
Mhm.
really clear objective, we got our activities, our agenda, etc. But I'm just letting you lead the questions, and I'm along for the ride. I'm learning a lot, and it's all stuff I love talking about.
Yeah, and you make it really interesting too. I don't know if I'm biased because, being a teacher, but it's really interesting and stuff and I'm like, "Oh, wow, if I was in the classroom, I would definitely try that out." So, I love that. I love
Good.
how creative you are with these ideas and it really shows that whether even if you don't have a budget, even if you have, you know, students with different strengths and abilities, like you can still make them feel welcome and comfortable in the space. And so I
Yeah.
just love that. So if an educator can't do all of the different things that you mentioned, what would you say is, well, they can, but can't do all of
Mhm.
it before the school year starts during
Sure.
pre-planning.
Hmm.
What would you say is the most important thing that they do during the pre-planning time to make sure their students feel welcome on the first day?
Hmm. I would say have your first week of lesson plans set. If you feel organized about what your plan is for the week, that's going to kind of organically set you up to make sure your materials are organized. You've thought about the students that are coming into the classroom and making sure their needs are met. And of course, as the year goes on and you learn more about the students, you'll have adjustments to make. But if you only can focus on one thing, get that first week of lesson plans set, know your plan. You might adjust after the first day, and that's all right. But think about impact over perfection. Like the bulletin boards, those can wait till later. The things hung up that can wait. But we want to make sure when students come in, they know, okay, this teacher is ready for me. They got my back. We have a plan here. Let's get going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it also maintains the teacher sanity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's so stressful if you're going into the first day and you don't have a plan set.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of stress. And the students are going to feel that.
Right. And like I taught six different grades, six different courses, and and all in 1 year, actually. And so I don't think I had one lesson plan that went exactly the way that I planned it out. Um,
What? I can't
I would be
believe
shocked. I would
it.
be shocked if I met a teacher who was like, "Yeah, my lessons always go as planned." But there
Mhm.
is so much comfort in knowing like there is a plan in place and I can adjust. Like sometimes I had to adjust if I was like, "Okay, the students are bored. I'm gonna adjust."
Mhm.
Oh, they would. Let's turn this into a partner activity instead of an individual activity to get them, more engaged and things like that. But having that plan set, even if it goes off from it some, is so helpful and keeps you from being like intimidated because it can, especially for a new teacher, it can be intimidating when you just have a bunch of
Mhm.
kids looking at you and they're
Ah,
like, okay, we're ready for you to
yeah.
do what you're supposed to do, and you're like,
Well, and that's
what is
really
that?
nice if they're like, "Hey, we're gonna wait for you to get it together." Most of the time, it's like, "Oh, it's
Right.
term time. Here we go."
Yes.
So on
Yes.
speaking of new teachers, if okay, you got your lovely week plan set, have some backup activities because sometimes we plan these activities that we think, oh, it's going to be 20, 30 minutes, and the kids get it done in 5. So what's your
Yes.
backup plan?
Yes. I used to have like early finisher activities,
Nice.
and I would let like if students finished early because I always hear, "I'm finished. What do I do next? What do I do next?"
Yep.
And I'm like, once y'all are seniors in high school, y'all aren't gonna even want me to know that you're finished. You're gonna wanna
Mhm.
you wanna keep that a secret so you could just not do anything to the end of class. But I would have like these early finisher activities and then they could pick, did they want to play an educational game or you want to do a puzzle or read a book, but they would be able to pick what it is that they wanted to do.
Nice.
And that definitely helped cut back on that downtime because it's like, why aren't you doing anything? You have options of things to do, that are productive and educational. So that is a super important piece of advice to plan for them to finish early, especially because
Yep.
students finish at different times too. And
Absolutely.
I noticed that a student who finishes early, their favorite pastime is to distract other students.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
fun. Mhm. Yep.
yeah, because it's like, I'm finished, so let's have
Right.
fun. So, yeah, that is super good advice. I don't know if you already post on social media. I don't think you gave me any social media platforms, but
I
you have so
know.
much great
I'm not that
advice.
cool, I guess.
You have so much great activity ideas. Like you should consider it, if you feel
Okay.
comfortable because teachers would definitely benefit from all the different ideas that you give, especially the ideas on a budget or the ones that don't take up too much time and things like that. So, just something to consider. But even though you're not on social media, is there anywhere where listeners can learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Sure. So I'll give you the link to our TTAC website. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, um, I try my best to write on articles based on topics of interest I'm hearing out in the field. For instance, we talked about some of the sense of belonging ideas. I gave you a couple examples, but not too long ago, I wrote an article about that such topic, and I think I gave 6 or 9 different ideas. So if you're looking for some
Oh,
more
great.
curated research ideas, things like that, I'll give you the link for that, and you can sign up. You don't have to be in Virginia necessarily to sign up for our newsletter. You just might have a little FOMO when we're promoting regional or state events, and you live out of state.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for being a guest. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.